The scream came from deep inside the woods, thin and broken, like it had already given up on being heard. Ethan Carter froze mid-step, his breath turning sharp in his chest as the sound echoed again, weaker this time, swallowed by the towering pines. The forest had always been his refuge, a place where grief softened and silence made sense, but in that moment, it felt alive and watching. Something was wrong. Something was waiting. And without knowing why, Ethan stepped off the narrow trail, straight toward the sound that would change his life forever. Before the story pulls you deeper, take a moment right now. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet power of helping a stranger when no one else is around, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Ethan was not the kind of man who went looking for trouble. He was a single father, 37 years old, worn thin by responsibility and loss. 2 years earlier, his wife had died suddenly, leaving him alone to raise their 7-year-old son, Noah. Since then, his life had shrunk into careful routines. Early mornings, school drop-offs, long shifts at the repair shop, quiet dinners, and bedtime stories read with a voice that sometimes trembled when the lights went out. On weekends, he took Noah to the edge of the state forest, letting the boy explore while he fixed old hiking boots or simply listened to the wind moving through the trees. The woods reminded Ethan that the world was still bigger than his pain. That afternoon, Noah had stayed with Ethan's sister, and Ethan went alone, needing the quiet more than usual. The sky was pale and heavy, clouds dragging low, and the forest smelled of damp earth and fallen leaves. When the scream came again, closer now, it cut through him. Logic told him to turn back, to call for help, to stay safe. But another part of him, the part that had learned what it meant to lose someone forever, refused to walk away. He pushed through thick brush, branches scraping his arms, his boots sinking into soft ground. The trees grew denser, the light fading until everything looked the same. Then he saw her. She was sitting against a fallen log, her coat torn, her hair tangled with leaves and dirt. One ankle was swollen badly, her face pale with exhaustion and fear. She looked up at him with eyes that were glassy but sharp, as if she had been holding herself together by pure will. Ethan did not ask questions. He took off his jacket, wrapped it around her shoulders, and crouched beside her, steady and calm even though his heart was racing. He checked her ankle carefully, knowing enough from years of physical work to recognize a bad sprain, maybe worse. The woman tried to stand and failed, her body shaking as hours of fear and cold caught up with her. Ethan realized then how long she must have been out there, alone, lost, listening to every sound as a possible threat. The walk back was slow and brutal. Ethan supported her weight, step by careful step, talking softly about ordinary things, about the trail, about the weather, about his son, and how much Noah loved building forts in the woods. He could feel how fragile she was, not just physically, but emotionally, like someone who had been holding a scream inside for too long. The forest seemed endless, every turn looking wrong, every sound too loud. Twice, Ethan worried he had lost the trail entirely. Fear crept in, cold and quiet, but he pushed it down. He could not afford to panic. Not now. When they finally reached the dirt road at the edge of the forest, dusk had fallen. Ethan flagged down a passing truck, helped the woman inside, and made sure she was taken to the nearest hospital. He stayed long enough to see her safe, long enough to know she would be okay. And then he left without giving his full name, without waiting for thanks. By the time he got home, his arms ached, his clothes were filthy, and exhaustion pressed him into the couch like a weight. He told himself it was over. Just one strange, intense moment in a life already full of them. The night passed fitfully. Ethan dreamed of the woods, of shadows moving just out of sight, of Noah calling his name from somewhere far away. Morning came too quickly. He made breakfast, packed a lunch, and walked Noah to school, listening to his son chatter about spelling tests and playground adventures. For a few hours, life slipped back into its familiar shape. Then the television caught his eye. Ethan was eating a late lunch when the breaking news banner flashed across the screen. The image showed the edge of the same forest, crowded with police vehicles and reporters. The headline burned across the bottom of the screen, bold and unreal. A missing woman had been found alive after disappearing under mysterious circumstances. She was not just anyone. She was Eleanor Whitmore, a high-profile philanthropist and the sole heir to a powerful business empire. The story unfolded rapidly, revealing how she had vanished after leaving a charity event, how her disappearance had sparked a statewide search, how authorities feared foul play. Ethan felt the room tilt as a photo of Eleanor appeared on the screen. Even cleaned up and professionally lit, he recognized her instantly. The same eyes, the same face, now composed and distant, framed by reporters and flashing cameras. The anchor's voice continued, explaining how an unidentified man had helped rescue her from the woods, a good Samaritan whose actions likely saved her life. Authorities were asking for him to come forward. Ethan turned off the television, his heart pounding. He had not known who she was. He had not wanted to know. The idea that the woman he had carried through the woods was someone the entire state had been searching for felt unreal, like a story happening to someone else. Fear crept in, not of attention, but of disruption. His life was fragile, carefully balanced around Noah. He had no desire to be pulled into headlines and questions in a world that did not belong to him. For days, he said nothing. But the story grew. Speculation filled the news. The mystery man became a symbol of hope, of goodness in a frightening world. Ethan watched from the sidelines, torn between staying silent and doing the right thing. In the end, it was Noah who made the decision for him, pointing at the television one evening and saying that the man in the woods sounded like a hero. Ethan realized then what silence might teach his son and what honesty could give him instead. When Ethan finally came forward, the attention was overwhelming. Cameras followed him. Strangers thanked him. Eleanor Whitmore released a public statement, expressing deep gratitude and asking to meet him privately. The meeting was quiet, respectful, and deeply human. She spoke of fear, of vulnerability, of how the woods had stripped away everything she thought defined her. Ethan spoke of loss, of responsibility, of a life shaped by small, daily acts of care. In that room, status meant nothing. Survival and gratitude meant everything. What followed was not a fairy tale, but a slow, meaningful change. Eleanor used her resources to support local search and rescue teams and fund programs for single parents in the community. Ethan returned to his routine, but something inside him had shifted. He stood a little taller. He smiled more easily. He began to believe again that doing the right thing mattered, even when no one was watching. Months later, the forest felt different. Still quiet, still vast, but no longer just a place of escape. It was a reminder that even in the darkest, most uncertain moments, one choice could ripple outward, touching lives in ways we might never fully understand. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness can come from ordinary people in extraordinary moments, please take a second now to like this video, share it, and let us know you felt something too. Your engagement helps these stories reach others who may need them more than they know. And before the ending, we have one special request for you. Please comment one word that this story made you feel, and tell us if you believe small acts of courage can still change the world. Ethan never set out to be a hero. He simply followed a sound in the woods and chose not to walk away. Sometimes, that is all it takes. The days after the headlines faded were strangely quiet for Ethan Carter, quieter than before, as if the world had taken a deep breath and was now watching him from a distance. The cameras eventually disappeared. The reporters moved on to newer stories, but the echo of that forest never truly left him. Every morning when he woke up before dawn, making coffee while the house slept, he felt the weight of what had happened settle gently on his chest, not as fear, but as responsibility. People now knew his name. More importantly, his son knew what his father had done. Noah began to see the world differently. He watched his father with a new kind of curiosity, asking questions about the woods, about helping strangers, about whether doing the right thing was always scary. Ethan answered honestly, telling him that fear never really goes away, but you learn to walk forward anyway. Those conversations, whispered at bedtime or shared over simple dinners, stitched something stronger between them. For the first time since his wife's death, Ethan felt like he wasn't just surviving for Noah. He was becoming someone his son could learn from. But life has a way of testing growth. A few weeks later, Ethan was called into his supervisor's office at the repair shop. Business had been slow. Cuts were coming. Ethan listened quietly, nodding, already calculating bills in his head, already preparing himself to be strong. When he walked out carrying a cardboard box with his tools, the old familiar fear returned, sharp and immediate. Being known as a hero did not pay rent. Being kind did not guarantee stability. That night, after Noah fell asleep, Ethan sat alone in the dark living room, staring at nothing, wondering if he had made a mistake by stepping forward at all. The phone rang late. pulling him out of his thoughts. It was a number he did not recognize. On the other end was Eleanor Whitmore's assistant, her voice calm and professional, asking if Ethan would be willing to meet again. This time, it was not for gratitude or publicity. Eleanor wanted to talk about something personal. Ethan hesitated, pride and uncertainty colliding inside him, but in the end he agreed. Something told him this conversation mattered. They met in a quiet community center, far from cameras and boardrooms. Eleanor looked different than she had on television, less polished, more human. She spoke slowly, choosing her words carefully, explaining how the experience in the woods had shattered her sense of control. For years, she had believed money and influence could solve anything. Being lost, injured, and alone had proven otherwise. She had survived because one ordinary man chose to help, not because of who she was, but because she was human. Eleanor told Ethan she wanted to build something lasting, something grounded in real lives. She wanted to open a foundation focused on emergency aid, search and rescue training, and support for families who lived one crisis away from collapse. And she wanted Ethan involved, not as a symbol, but as a voice. Someone who understood what it meant to struggle quietly, to show up without expecting reward. Ethan did not answer right away. He thought of Noah. He thought of the repair shop, of grease-stained hands, and predictable days. He thought of the woods and the sound that had changed everything. Saying yes meant stepping into uncertainty again. Saying no meant returning to a smaller life, safer, but dimmer. In the end, he chose the same way he had in the forest. He leaned toward what felt right, even if it scared him. The transition was not easy. Ethan struggled with self-doubt, with feeling out of place in meetings and planning sessions. He stumbled over words, questioned his worth, wondered if he belonged there at all. But slowly, something remarkable happened. His honesty resonated. His stories grounded abstract ideas in reality. Programs were shaped differently because of his input. Help reach people faster. Noah watched his father work late nights not out of desperation, but purpose. Months turned into a year. The foundation grew. So did Ethan. He learned that being strong did not mean being unafraid. It meant continuing anyway. He learned that loss could carve space for compassion, that grief could become a bridge instead of a wall. Most importantly, he learned that the world does not change all at once, but moment by moment, through choices made when no one is watching. One evening, Ethan took Noah back to the edge of the forest. They walked the familiar trail, leaves crunching underfoot, sunlight filtering softly through the trees. They stopped near the place where everything had begun. Noah held his hand tightly, looking around with wide eyes, not afraid, but aware. Ethan felt a quiet gratitude settle over him. The woods were no longer a place of fear or memory alone. They were a reminder of how far they had come. If this story has touched your heart, if it reminded you that ordinary people can make extraordinary differences simply by choosing compassion, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and stay connected with our channel. Your support helps keep these stories alive. Before the ending, we ask you one special thing. Please comment and tell us if you believe one small decision can truly change a life, and what this story made you feel inside. Ethan Carter never became famous in the way people expected. He became something better. He became proof that even after loss, after fear, after uncertainty, a single act of kindness can open a path forward, not just for one lost woman in the woods, but for countless lives that follow.